When David and Alina sat at their kitchen table to map out their retirement, they made a completely logical choice that felt bulletproof, until reality proved them wrong in a way they never saw coming. They weren't reckless spenders. They weren't high-risk investors chasing get-rich-quick schemes. They were ordinary, careful people who did everything right. They worked for decades, paid their taxes, saved what they could, and coordinated their Social Security claiming decisions based on the exact advice millions of couples receive every single day. They figured that as long as they locked in their monthly checks, their financial future together was secure no matter what. But what they didn't realize, and what thousands of married couples miss every year, is that the system operates on a hidden set of rules that completely changes the math the moment one partner passes away. And that is where our story begins. Because the most dangerous financial traps aren't the ones you stumble into blindly. They are the ones you walk into thinking you are completely safe. Let us trace how David and Alina built their strategy. David, having earned a slightly higher salary over his career, decided to wait until his full retirement age to claim his Social Security benefit, securing a solid, predictable monthly check. Alina, who earned less over her working years, waited until her own full retirement age, qualifying for her own independent benefit. When both checks landed in their bank account each month, it gave them a comfortable, steady cushion. They lived within their means. They budgeted for groceries, home repairs, and occasional visits to their grandchildren. In their minds, their retirement plan had a built-in safety net. If David died first, Alina would inherit his larger check, or vice versa. They assumed the household income would simply adjust by dropping the smaller amount, while the larger baseline remained untouched. It makes intuitive sense, doesn't it? If you pay into a system for 40 years and you earn two separate benefits, surely both belong to the household. Except that is not how federal survivor benefits actually work. And discovering that truth during a period of profound grief is an experience no one prepares you for. When David passed away after a sudden illness, Alina's world didn't just tilt emotionally, it shifted structurally. Amid the overwhelming fog of losing her husband of 42 years, she contacted the Social Security Administration to handle the paperwork, expecting a seamless transition. Instead, she ran headfirst into an administrative reality that left her stunned: the concept of benefit offsets. She was politely informed that she could keep her own monthly benefit, or she could receive the survivor benefit based on David's record. But she could not keep both in their entirety. The smaller benefit simply dissolved into the larger one. Alina stared at the paperwork in disbelief. She had spent years believing that 2 lifetimes of payroll contributions meant a dual layer of protection in retirement. Instead, she learned that the system treats a surviving spouse not as an accumulator of dual records, but as a single entity whose total household support is abruptly capped. Overnight, her monthly household cash flow plummeted by an amount she had never factored into her retirement spreadsheet. And that drop in income was only the first shockwave, because what happened to her expenses next revealed an even deeper flaw in how human beings plan for the future. Think about how we talk about retirement costs. We often hear people say, once you're alone, your living expenses will cut themselves in half because you're only buying groceries for one and heating a smaller space. It sounds like rational math, but human life doesn't run on spreadsheet logic. When Alina looked at her bills the following month, she discovered a harsh economic truth. Expenses are stubborn. Her property taxes didn't drop by 50% because David wasn't sitting in the living room. Her home insurance policy stayed exactly the same. Her car insurance, utilities, internet, and routine maintenance bills didn't even flinch. In fact, certain costs actually went up or became harder to manage alone. When you are a couple, labor is divided, problems are shared. When you are suddenly flying solo, the invisible costs of outsourcing basic household tasks start eating away at whatever cash flow you have left. So here was Alina's new reality. Her gross monthly income had dropped drastically, but her fixed overhead expenses remained stubbornly anchored to the past. And this is where the behavioral psychology of retirement planning reveals its most painful blind spot. Because David and Alina's mistake wasn't a lack of intelligence. It was a psychological trap known as joint survival optimism. Our brains are biologically and emotionally wired to plan for a future where both partners are always there. We visualize our golden years sitting across from each other at the breakfast table. We design our budgets around 2 sets of breathing lungs, 2 active schedules, and 2 continuous streams of income. Even when people try to talk about estate planning or survivor scenarios, an internal psychological barrier pushes the conversation away. It feels morbid. It feels like tempting fate. So we avoid it, pushing the what-if scenarios into a mental blind spot. We assume the government machinery will automatically take care of the details. We trust that the system will be kind, intuitive, and protective. But government formulas don't run on empathy. They run on strict actuarial code. And that code contains another hidden layer that catches people long before they ever reach the survivor stage, a layer tied directly to the timing decisions made years earlier. Let us look closer at how past choices quietly lock in future traps. Imagine a couple in their early 60s. They are looking at their savings, feeling a mild pinch of anxiety about inflation and market volatility. One of them decides to claim their own Social Security benefit early at age 62 to grab some extra cash flow, thinking, "We need the money now, and besides, it won't matter later because we'll always have my spouse's larger check to lean on." It feels like a harmless short-term fix, but that early claiming decision acts like a permanent anchor. When a person claims their own retirement benefit early, that monthly amount is permanently reduced for life. Years down the road, when their partner passes away, that early decision can ripple directly into how the survivor benefit is calculated and scaled, locking the surviving spouse into a much lower baseline than they ever anticipated. They traded a temporary moment of cash flow relief for a permanent handicap in their survivor safety net. And because no one stands at the Social Security office window warning you about these long-term cross-currents, people walk away feeling confident, completely unaware of the domino effect they just set into motion. That realization raises a much harder question. Why is the system built this way in the first place? To understand that, we have to step back in time and look at the historical DNA of Social Security. The program was never designed to be a private investment account, a 401k, or a flexible life insurance policy where you pull out exact value based on what you put in. It was constructed during the Great Depression as a massive social insurance baseline meant to prevent widespread elderly poverty. When those formulas were written back in the 1930s, the American household looked entirely different. The typical economic unit featured a primary breadwinner and a stay-at-home spouse. The survivor rules were originally engineered to protect a dependent widow who had little to no earnings history of her own. Fast forward to the modern era, where dual-earner households are the norm. Millions of couples spend 40 years where both partners work, both pay into the system, and both earn independent retirement records. Yet the legacy machinery of the survivor benefit rules still operates on an overlapping framework that struggles to cleanly accommodate 2 independent earners. 2 people can work side by side for decades, contribute massive amounts to the system through payroll taxes, and discover that because both earned individual benefits, the system compresses their combined output in a way that feels strangely punishing. That historical mismatch is the hidden engine behind thousands of quiet financial crises happening in retirement communities across the country right now. And just when you think you've mapped out all the moving parts, the tax code steps in to deliver the final twist. When a surviving spouse transitions from filing taxes as married filing jointly to filing as a single taxpayer, a brutal compression takes place. The income thresholds where federal taxes begin eating into your Social Security benefits do not scale down proportionally for single filers. A single taxpayer hits higher taxation brackets at a much lower income level than a married couple. Think about what that means for someone in Alina's position. Her gross monthly income had already dropped because of the survivor benefit offset rule. But because her tax filing status changed to single, a larger percentage of that remaining income suddenly became subject to federal income tax. Her net take-home cash flow took a second, invisible hit. The system reduces your benefit with one hand and increases your tax pressure with the other. It is a compounding squeeze that leaves many surviving spouses staring at their bank statements, wondering how the math broke down so completely. This is why understanding these mechanics isn't just an exercise in boring financial trivia. It is a matter of profound financial self-defense. When we look at retirement planning through this documentary lens, the entire paradigm shifts. We stop asking, how much money can we accumulate together? And start asking a much deeper, more protective question. What does day one of singlehood actually look like for the person I love? It means sitting down across the kitchen table, while both of you are healthy, clear-headed, and present, and doing the uncomfortable math. It means looking at your respective benefit statements and asking, which check is larger? If that larger check is the only one standing 20 years from now, what will the monthly cash flow actually be? How do our early claiming choices impact that future survivor baseline? What will our tax bracket look like on day one of single filing? The couples who escape this trap